You're listening to the Salty Sex Cast with Pamela and Mariah.
Yeah, and what's puberty?
The sex education you wish you had in high school.
Maybe a diagram will help.
Hello. Oh, it's so good just to be back in rhythm. And,
it is.
And, you know, taking a bit of a break was really nice, but I'm so happy to be back weekly.
Me too. And to have guests again.
Yes. Yeah, so introducing our guest right from the get-go, we have Usha Rose with us calling in from California.
Hi Mariah. Hi, Pamela.
Hi,
Thank you
Usha.
for having me.
Thank you for coming on our show today.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
So, Usha, can you tell our listeners just a little bit about your background?
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. So I am a sexual empowerment coach and an erotic embodiment guide. I specifically love working with women, but I also work with men and non-binary folks. Specifically, what I love supporting my clients with is to become more connected to their pleasure and their desires, to lovingly embrace their sensuality, and to cultivate a really healthy, intimate relationship with their own sexuality so that we feel more empowered to create a satisfying life of love, joy, and freedom. And my background, I'm a graduate of the Tantric Institute of Integrated Sexuality and the Somatica method of sex and relationship coaching. And I'm also an organizer and graduate of the International School of Temple Art.
Which I want to find out more about what that it means. But we'll do that later.
Yeah. I'm happy to share more about any of those trainings that I've done. They're all pretty amazing trainings in sex, love, relationships, tantra, all the things that I am passionate about.
Cool. I think your mission is really beautiful. I love what you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we brought you on today to talk specifically about being single.
Like how to be single?
Like how
Because you can
to be
just
single.
piss a bunch of people off and be single real fucking quick.
But more specifically, how to be happy while being single, how to find contentment within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, because I think there's so many single folks out there, and, you know, when you hear someone single, it's like, oh, so your primary mission is to find a partner. When that can be really inaccurate. Some people are very happy single, or they're continually choosing to be single to first build themselves and work on their personal relationship within themselves. That was something I never got. I really, truly have always had to build myself within a relationship. So I'm quite interested in this topic.
Right. I've had a similar experience. I have never not been in a relationship in my adult life. And now I'm in 3 relationships, or 4 if you count my throuple as another relationship, which I do.
Yeah, because
it takes that much work. So, you know, the parallel for this, though, would be like, you talked about relationship anarchy. And that would be like the polyamorous kind of parallel, I think, of being single, which I've never experienced, but I totally respect. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So I didn't dive into this too much yet, but in terms of being a relationship coach, I really love working with people in non-traditional relationships. So polyamorous relationships, open relationships, and relationship anarchy. And what I practice actually is what I call solo polyamory and relationship anarchy. And how, like you said, it's kind of like being single, but not being single.
Right.
So there is definitely a difference between really being single and not having any romantic relationships. And then there's being like solo polyamorous, which is kind of the way I describe it is like moving through the world kind of like a single person, but having multiple relationships.
Yeah.
some that may be romantic, some that may be sexually intimate, some that are affectionate, some that are just platonic and or friendly. And the way that I think of relationship anarchy is just that it's having multiple relationships that are important to me, and not prioritizing by default relationships with somebody that I'm having sex with, for example, over versus one of my best friends. So it's recognizing that every single relationship I am in is unique, and I get to create my own agreements within that individual relationship. There's a very much, in our culture, there's so much emphasis placed on being in partnership, and there's a lot of organization around the couple and being in a couple, and we default a lot when we're in partnership to like our primary main partner, romantic partner, being the person that we go to for all of the things. And when we kind of dissect that or shift away from that model and start having multiple relationships that have different roles and agreements and responsibilities, it becomes more like a network of support, as opposed to just having like this one person who's our main support system. So it's saying like, oh, I've got like a couple of friends and maybe a cuddle buddy and maybe one or two people that I'm sexual with, or any, there's any kinds of varieties. It may just be one or two or three people, but it's not automatically assuming that the person I'm having sex with is the person that I'm prioritizing in my life as being more important than, this friend I've had for 5 years who always shows up for me through all the breakups that I've had,
So, right.
So it looks like relationship, well, I shouldn't say relationship, human connection a la carte. You're just going to pick and choose.
Ooh, I like that.
I like that too.
Oh, this is our new vocabulary word. Brady, write it down.
Add it, Brady. So,
It's going in the glossary.
so Usha, would you? Oh, sorry.
I should also say, in talking about relationship anarchy, there is something called the Relationship Anarchy Manifesto that was written by someone named Andy Nordgren. So if people want to learn more about it, that's sort of like the go-to resource, and it's a list of different sort of beliefs about what relationship anarchy is and how to create these unique designer relationships. The first one is love is abundant and every relationship is unique. So kind of gives you an idea of the foundational beliefs of relationship anarchy.
So, Usha, would you say that you prioritize your relationship with yourself over your relationship with others as a relationship anarchist?
Right. Yeah.
So this is the foundation of the pyramid.
Yeah. So what does that look like?
Well, and also, it's also a non-hierarchical way of relating. And I think that's an important word to include because in polyamory, sometimes, I feel like this has been shifting a lot in recent years, but, for a while it was this hierarchical structure where, there's like the couple and their primary partners, and then there's like secondary, and even using that terminology creates this hierarchy. Yeah. Whereas in relationship anarchy, it's saying, no, like every relationship has its own specific agreements, and it is not hierarchical.
Right.
And in terms of like prioritizing myself first, it's like, yes, I'm a sovereign being, and that doesn't mean I do whatever the fuck I want and don't care about other people. It's like, how do I live in synergy and be sovereign and respect other people's sovereignty and, really respect that, like I get to make choices for me, taking into consideration the whole and how my actions affect the other people in my life, and, choose from that place and take into other people's considerations and have space for other people's needs and feelings and desires. But ultimately, if everyone I'm relating with is in sovereignty and synergy, we're doing our best to, really be in harmony.
I like that you feel like there's a shift happening in the polyamorous community, but I haven't really seen a lot of that here in Utah.
We like to hold on to our traditional values here in Utah. Yeah, we're just a little late to the game sometimes. So this is why these types of conversations are vital.
Yeah,
for that growth.
Absolutely. But I do want to know. So what does that look like for you to prioritize yourself?
Yeah. So let's see. There's a lot of ways of answering that. I would say from the perspective of wholeness, it's making sure that I am resourced and having structures in place that keep me balanced in my mental, physical, emotional well-being, which includes spending quality time with people that nourish me, spending quality time with myself, spending quality time in nature, and doing things that make me feel good so that I am resourced. So the more resourced I am, the more I'm able to really show up in positive ways with the people that I'm relating with. And
so putting in really boundaries. Sorry,
that's okay.
So putting in boundaries, doing self-care, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Self-care. And also, taking responsibility for my own emotion and personal growth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that comes in really important in relationship in terms of how we communicate, knowing what is my own stuff versus what I'm projecting onto somebody. And so resourcing in my own source of love, I am knowing that I am lovable, having a loving relationship with myself so that I'm not quite as needy or projecting on other people I'm in relationship with, and having a more clear lens of what are the needs I have in this relationship, and how do I get them or request them, and what are the things I can be responsible for in myself.
I think we could do an entire episode sometime just on that. It's so important. And it's so important, especially in poly relationships.
Yeah. And then it kind of goes into understanding all of the ways that we show up in relationships, like knowing a bit about attachment theory can be helpful, and learning different communication styles can be helpful. And then also, one of the things I really work with people a lot around is sexuality. So that's a whole other big subject. It's how am I having a healthy relationship with my own sexuality, which is a really important piece to all of this as well, especially as a single person or a dating person or someone in partner. It's what is my relationship to my own sexuality as my primary relationship?
Yeah.
As far as fueling yourself and really focusing on your primary relationship with yourself, what are some, starting points? I mean, I'm just thinking, you even just said quality time with yourself, and I was like, oh fuck, I don't think I've ever had that. So I'm like, what? I know what self-care looks like, and that's so personalized, so it really just depends on what you're needing for that self-care part. But what is quality self-time?
Quality time with yourself.
Yeah. What is quality self-time? Is that what I said? Okay. Well, yeah, what does that look like? I don't even know what that can look like for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Did I ever tell you guys that I was celibate intentionally for 2 years before I met Jamie?
I think you might have mentioned it.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe I was always drunk when you told me these things.
Yeah, after my divorce, I made a lot of bad choices, dictated by my dick. And
Dictated.
That dictator, man.
Yeah. So I just sort of followed it into trouble. And I made a choice at some point. I was like, I'm going to seriously fuck up if I don't pay attention to what I'm doing. And So I decided to take a path of celibacy, and then I met like a friend who helped me set up a dating profile.
So a good first step for you to turn into yourself was to stop that sexual component with other people, because that was kind of what was the big...
Yeah, my dick was just getting me into trouble.
Yeah, you were following your dick compass.
Yeah.
Not your heart, not your brain, not your emotion.
Well, and then I would feel bad because my dick compass would lead me to somebody who would become emotionally attached. And I did not have any of that at the time because I was like scarred and angry from my previous relationship. And so I would like let my dick make decisions for me. And then afterwards be like, oh my God, like I feel like a terrible human being for making this person like fall in love with me.
Just so your dick had a... Never mind.
Basically.
So your dick wasn't lonely. Oh, yeah. So I'm just curious, what does that quality self-time look like? Am I throwing words out there? Quality self-time?
Let's just add it to the glossary or the dictionary.
I like it. Yeah, there's a lot of ways we could say it. Quality self-care, quality time with yourself, I think is what I might have said.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it can look like a lot of things, and I think self-care is one of those things, but it's literally carving out time to intentionally spend with yourself, be with yourself, and take care of yourself. So, like taking a walk, meditation, bath, self-pleasuring. One of the things I do sometimes, like if I've been out and I come home by myself, like what would I do if I come home with a lover? Like I would be hanging out with them. We would be like talking and dancing and making love. So I'm like, I can do that with myself. And so I'll put on music and I'll dress up, I'll dance around, I'll self-pleasure. I'll like really have that same energy with myself that I would have if I were with a lover. And that's some of my like favorite quality self time. It's like I'm on a date with myself. It's like, so it's like really fun for me, to have that intentional time and think of it in that way. That's like really like dressing up. I'll like dance in the mirror, just playful, fun, erotic, sweet solo time.
And it's not, like specifically for anyone else but yourself. I really love that, because how many times are people alone and they're just like, oh, what's going to distract me? I'm bored. I need to be distracted by social media, my phone, TV, taking a nap. I mean, maybe reading could be in there, but like really it's like all of a sudden that fear of I'm bored. No one else is here to entertain me. Nothing else, like instead of I want to give myself some time to take yourself out on a date. What would your dream date be with yourself?
So, Usha, if let's say we have a fear of being alone because we've never really experienced it before.
Some people in this room have it. I know I'm one, just because it has been so long.
Yeah, I just have no experience with it. So where do I start? How do I overcome that fear?
Honestly, the first thing that came to mind was to, work with a coach or a therapist, because that can be really, really helpful to understanding some deeper things going on of like, where is that fear coming from and what is that about? But of course, there are a lot of other things you can do besides that just for yourself.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think I know exactly where it comes from.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily help me get over it.
Yeah. It's really for me, what I think it is really learning to fall in love with yourself. So I would say there's a few things, but one would be like every day getting into making it a practice of acknowledging things about yourself that you really like, things about your personality, things about your body, things that you like about who you are, and really becoming more intimate with the self and getting to know yourself as if you were your own best friend. And I think this is, unless you've spent a bit of time alone, then it may not be something that you've done before, but it's like when you spend a lot of time with yourself, I've heard other people say this, and it's been my experience. In my 20s, I used to travel a lot by myself, and it was like, wow, I feel like I really became my own best friend in that time. So it's really developing this intimate connection with yourself and learning how to enjoy your own company. So yeah, starting with, and if that feels like a stretch, it's like, oh, maybe journaling every day and acknowledging yourself for things that you like about yourself and things you think are cool about yourself, and really starting to get to know yourself as if, you were your own best friend, and like complimenting yourself and appreciating yourself, acknowledging yourself in the way you would for a friend or a lover.
So almost kind of, like you're looking in the mirror. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Too many, I think our society has gotten so far away from like introspection and really taking a chance to like look at ourselves, but not even like we're trying to look at ourselves now. We're trying to ask ourselves deeper questions. But have we ever like hung out with ourselves and been okay with that? So
yeah, I feel like I really like and appreciate myself, and it's been a hard road to get here. I just have no experience just hanging out with myself.
Yeah.
It just feels very lonely to me.
It's quiet. So I have to be like, okay, like that whole dance party, I was like, fuck yeah, I could totally do that.
Yeah.
As long as I knew like all the windows were closed, like the blinds were shut, like, making sure I'm not like look like a crazy person. But like that connected well with me. What are, maybe we could throw out a couple more ideas just to like, where can you start? What's a safe thing, especially if being alone is maybe a fear or even a just a discomfort? Because it's uncomfortable to be alone when you haven't been, but then I would like to shift it to when you have been alone, how do you come back to yourself? So first start with maybe that fear, that discomfort of being alone. What can we do? Dance party. It's on my list. Doing it.
I like it.
Gonna dress up, get myself a little fashion show. That'll be fun. That makes me feel good.
Something I feel like is also important to say here is like, there's no right or wrong. It's not like you have to get comfortable being alone, unless it's causing a problem in your life or you're having a sense of dissatisfaction or unhappiness. I also feel like we're all really different people, and some people are more naturally kind of loner type of people and really love their own company more than others. And some people are more, social and constantly in partnership. And I just want to make sure that, there's clarity here, that it's not like one is better than the other. There's anything right or wrong about any of them before like diving in deeper.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that is not the message that I get from anyone. Even from some of my partners, I've gotten this message like, you need to work on you.
Oh, being by yourself. And not relying on
you need
others.
to be comfortable with just being alone. And
you're like, I didn't pick 3 partners to be alone, you assholes.
And I just really I so enjoy sharing experiences with other people. I will say this. Occasionally, and it's rare because I do have so many partners, but when I'm home by myself, I do have fun. But it's rare, I don't want that very often. And so I guess I feel like that's where I'm lacking or broken or something, because I don't yearn for that. It makes me uncomfortable, But when it does happen, I'm like, oh, this is great. I can do whatever I want and no one can say anything about it.
I think that's why maybe I crave a relationship with myself. Because I have for so long have felt like, all my time spent is for a relationship for, with someone else, to build that relationship, whether it was like parent-child relationship or an intimate partner, a spouse. I have never intentionally put energy out there to create a stronger relationship between me, myself, and I. Self-care has been one, but as far as like, what's that relationship? What's that need? And I know I need it. This is my year. This is my 2020, one is my, to be back for me. So,
Yeah. So, oh, go ahead, Usha.
So some ideas around that?
That would be fantastic. Yeah.
So one of the things that's coming to me, which is a lot about who I am and how I view the world, is I'm a very embodied somatic person. So doing things that put me in my body has always been a really solid place of like feeling at home in myself and feeling like, oh, I have this relationship with my body that's been sort of like an anchor. So, having some sort of physical practice can be really supportive in terms of cultivating that solo self relationship, whether it's, yoga or dance or even just walking, being out in nature and spending time in nature alone, I think is a really big one, which maybe I'll come back to that one, but like martial arts or some kind of solo type of movement practice, even meditation, which isn't necessarily movement, but it is that like turning your attention inwards and being present in your body, in the sensations of your body and the working of the mind, I think would be a really foundational place to start in terms of cultivating that relationship with yourself. It's like, what is this body? How does it work? What is my brain doing? How are they connected? And just kind of getting to know yourself on that very like physical growth level, and like embodied place. And also that also ties back into sexuality, like exploring your sexuality for yourself as well.
It might sound kind of crazy, but that's what I do when I practice competitive shooting.
With yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great
It
example.
doesn't sound crazy.
It's like a whole thing where you have to breathe properly and then you have to work your finger correctly. And like that all sounds perfect for this podcast. But the end result is a tiny little piece of copper jacketed lead hitting a spot that you want it to at a distance away from you. So,
Yeah,
it's a perfect example because it's like a focused activity where you're like really present.
Well, like I can tell I'm having a good day taking care of myself when I'm on the range and I forget there's other people on the range. Like that's when I know I'm in that like flow state.
Yeah, exactly. The flow state.
So shifting to someone who's not in a partnership or a relationship, how do you build that for yourself? I know it's the same way.
Before we get to that,
okay.
I have one question. So Usha, can you talk about the benefits of being single and of being solo poly? Like why do we want to possibly work on this?
Yeah.
Well, being single without having romantic relationships provides you quite a bit more sovereignty, because you're not having to take other people's needs or requests, like time desires, or like any other kinds of things like that into consideration. So you have a lot more freedom. I mean, depending on the kind of relationship that you're in, but when you're single, you can really just focus on yourself and turn your attention to yourself without being distracted or having to take too many other people's time needs into consideration. So when you have that, you can be more like, well, how do I want to be with myself? What do I want to focus on? What do I want to learn? How do I want to use my time? What types of relationships do I want to be cultivating? It's a really great time to strengthen friendships. And I personally believe friendship is a really solid foundation for all people to have a few really good friends and friends that can last a lifetime, whereas romantic partners, tend to come and go for many of us, where some people have friends for many, many years or lifetimes. And really leaning more into friendship and community and cultivating more hobbies, more passion, like learning about what is fun for me. Do I want to learn about cooking or gardening or bird watching or study dance, or, what are the things that I'm interested in that I have time for because I'm not dating or I'm not in a relationship. Also, if you have other relationships, like say you have children or family or other friends or community engagements, you have more time for those things. And also really cultivating a sexual relationship with yourself as a source of energy and creativity and power, and really getting to know who you are, like who am I as an individual being, without being influenced or persuaded or kind of attached to another in a romantic way. And the more that we really kind of have that solid foundation of like, who am I? What do I like? What do I like to do? What am I interested in? Then we have so much more even to bring into relationships.
Oh, so true.
Yeah, you think that the healthier relationships you're going to have when you know what you're bringing, what you want, what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
What you stand for.
My solo poly and single friends are honestly some of single friends who are single by choice are honestly like the happiest, most well-rounded people that I know. they are always up to some like they're so productive. They're always into some project, creating art, getting out there, having fun adventures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
They're doing it right.
Yeah. I kind of feel like I kind of get the best of both worlds, because it's like, I'm kind of single, I'm like very sovereign. I get to do whatever I want, but I also have multiple relationships that satisfy a lot of my needs for connection and intimacy and friendship and affection and intellect and spirituality and all these different things from multiple people.
Absolutely.
That's what I was saying, human connection a la carte. Like, I think it's so fantastic. Being able to kind of choose what specifically you need fueled. It's like, oh, I need sexual something or other, and I can get that here, and I need spiritual something or other, and I can get that there, and oh, that's so cool. Instead of just relying on yourself and a committed partner because you're in the traditional couple relationship.
You have that attachment, but not necessarily the obligation to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
something else that's good about understanding your attachment styles. It can be really helpful to know, like, what am I coming with in terms of my history, the way I grew up, that's led me to be the way that I am, and to know that, actually really need like one secure primary partner, and that's really going to serve me best, and I'm actually going to thrive better if I have that, versus somebody who might know, like, actually I'm like really good and independent, and that actually, like, I don't feel like I need that, and I want this other thing. So in terms of being single, or even not being single, but like really understanding how you are in relationship and what's going to make you feel the most safe and secure, so that you can have intimate relationships and feel really secure in those relationships. Because again, just going back to like, polyamory is definitely not for everybody. And the more that we really understand ourselves, we can have that certainty of saying like, this is what I know works for me. And, you know, of course that comes through trial and error, and we kind of are all figuring it out as we go. But it's not like it's not like one is better than the other. It's like some people really, really do function and thrive better in a more like secure primary style monogamous relationship. And some people really thrive more if they have more spaciousness and can be solo poly and have multiple partners. So yeah, again, it's
definitely.
just knowing yourself is key to getting the things you want and creating the life that you can best thrive in.
I asked my husband the other day, I was like, what's, you know, something that your mother has said to you that stuck with you? You know, just we're in the car, we're just bantering back and forth. And he was just like, after my first marriage, she said, you know, you're not going to find a relationship until you find a relationship with yourself, or you're not going to find a healthy relationship, something like that. And she's coming from an LDS, you know, monogamy is king kind of thing, relationship. Or background. And so I just thought that was cool that she had said that to him. But then I wanted to probe a little more and be like, how did you find that? You know, and I never did. And I really want to. But like, yeah, when you have people like all of a sudden outside of a relationship, or a relationship just ended, how do you find that relationship with yourself? How are you happy with yourself? You know, it's like, I mean, very personalized, I know.
Yeah. I have friends who, whenever they get into a relationship, I don't see them again for quite some time.
They disappear into the relationship.
Because they get lost into it. Yeah. And they're so unhappy with themselves and always so desperate to be in a relationship, because they don't have that security, I guess.
Yeah. I was talking to a good friend of mine who broke up from her partner of 4 years a couple of months ago. And, you know, she confessed with me that she had this belief that something's wrong with her if she's not in partnership. Mm-hmm. And I realized it's like understanding our value and our worthiness, and, you know, really like feeling that you have value and worth as an individual being, that you don't need to be in partnership to prove to yourself or anybody else that you are a valuable, amazing, significant human in the world. Right. You know, like you are an individual being.
Well, that's why I asked you about the benefits of being single, because I really want to challenge that idea that society is constantly pounding us with, that you are not a complete person unless you're coupled.
You look at so many things out there that say, you know, like is it Greek mythology? And I'm gonna fuck this up anyway, where like Zeus thought that, like, you know, like we first were a being with 4 arms and 4 legs, and Zeus was jealous or whatever. I don't know if it was Zeus or somebody. So then they split us apart. So you're supposed to be wandering the world
looking for your soulmate.
Other soulmate. Yeah, your
the
other
whole
half.
idea of soulmates
just
is
that. All those kind of stories and things just kind of reiterate the whole.
It doesn't sound like Zeus.
Drawing of a heart. No, not Zeus. I'm sure that's why I said
he flew down as a swan to fuck somebody, I think.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure
he was all about
it
relationships and staying together, I think. A lot of relationships.
But where, you know, like the heart that we draw today is like the two, like an anatomical heart, like 2 of them put together, and that's why it comes with like the 2 humps and the tip at the.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like just things like that come around, and it's just like, oh, I'm not whole until I find that other person, and we're really trying to push that.
Yeah,
let's push against that.
What Jerry Maguire, remember that famous line? "You complete me."
Right.
It's like this whole idea that we need someone else to complete us. Yeah.
Yeah. It was Zeus that myth comes from the Greek mythology.
Oh, good. I feel better about myself.
Right. Good job.
I'm like, I'm pulling shit out of nowhere, but you know.
Yeah, you know, it's a really big theme that is important to me to dispel that myth that we are half of a being and we need another person to complete us, or that we have a perfect soulmate. Like, I mean, I definitely don't believe that. And I feel like we are whole and complete into ourselves. And I think being single gives us the opportunity to cultivate that experience for yourself. And I have to say that for me, it's also a very spiritual perspective. And the way that I experience it is that we are all divine beings. And as human beings, there is this like eternal longing that it comes from feeling separated from the divine or from source energy. And so we always have this grief feeling of separation. And some of the most profound spiritual experience of my life is feeling that sense of oneness and that sense of peace and that sense of like, I am a part of the whole. I am love, divine love. I am an abundant source of divine love. I am connected to the source of all things. And really feeling that oneness and that connection. That's why I mentioned before, like spending time in nature is really important to me, because it kind of taps us into that divine spirituality. And you know, I mean, maybe this is a little out there for some people, but it is very much true for me in terms of what my spirituality is. And it is that sense of like me as the divine am whole and complete. And when I meet another person, seeing them as divine and whole and complete, and we're also human, which means we have all of these like imperfections and these wounds, and which is what makes relating so complicated and triggering, and, you know, makes us all unique as individual persons, people with personalities. But it's like when we really surrender into that sense of oneness is where we find our wholeness. And, you know, perhaps that's part of the secret to, you know, having a healthy relationship with yourself, is kind of connecting to that essence of who we are. You know, I think that's kind of also, you know, I have a really rich background in yoga, which is a pretty solitary practice, and meditation. So perhaps that's part of what, you know, has really supported me in having this relationship with myself as primary and, you know, feel pretty natural and important. So yeah, going back to the like meditation, embodiment practices, connecting to nature in terms of like how to spend time alone to cultivate that relationship with the self. And honestly, I do want to plug again into like working with a therapist or coach, because it's like they kind of really support you to dig in deeper to understand yourself and access those deep places to get you more comfortable with who you are, and to feel more in love with yourself, and to know your worthiness, and to uncover some unconscious things that are creating a block there.
Oh, I love all the things that you've talked about to cultivate that relationship with yourself. Is not, they don't look like turning in and shutting off. All of them were either connecting to, you know, higher self or energy or anything that's, you know, outside of you. It's, you know, when some people probably think of, do you have a good energy? What's the word? Relationship with yourself. You think, oh, closed off. I don't need anyone. I can fulfill all my needs. It's just me, myself, and I'm not connected with anyone. I put up those walls, but really it's being open to a lot more. But I don't know, maybe not expecting more. I don't know. I'm just putting shit out there at this point.
No, I think that's brilliant. And it's not like Usha mentioned earlier, like it's not about expecting one other person in your life to fulfill all of your needs. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. To know that you have all yourself. Of that within yourself. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just kind of interesting thinking of, you know, you're not like this silo, this, you know, thing that you get to cut off from everything else and expect to be happy, healthy person kind of thing. You know, you're still having to find your place and So that's what I was just kind of noticing, that theme there.
Yeah.
You know, it's because it's easy, especially if we're looking at personalities and, you know, those extroverts who like, I want to be with all the people. And then you have an introvert who, you know, is happy with themselves, but doesn't mean that they cut themselves off from everyone to be happy.
Right.
Everyone and everything kind of thing. They're just finding that happiness there, you know, a little bit. So
we all have a need for significance and belonging in the world, whether we really enjoy being around large groups of people or not. We need to feel that belonging somewhere.
When I went through that period of time where I was celibate for 2 years, I still dated. I still hung out with friends. I didn't like hide the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just took my dick out of the decision making.
I
put on my steel panties and walked around. It was fantastic.
It was difficult to like make that decision for myself, but I knew I had to because I kept breaking hearts and I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And being able to just recognize that for yourself and know what the action that needed to be, you know, and that was sex for you. That was the action that you needed to step away from and cultivate other types of relationships.
Yeah, because
you still could date. You can still be intimate. You can still be romantic without your dick.
Yeah, it landed me in toxic relationships where I then felt like I had to stick around because we did the thing. So
so Usha, I would like to know more about the temple of what was it?
ISTA, is that it?
The International School of Temple Art.
Yes. I wrote it down. I was like, I want to know more.
It's a organization that's been around for, I want to say 7 years. It started in Arizona, but is now worldwide. And there are trainings that happen all over the world. Although, of course, you know, the in-person trainings have been much fewer this year with COVID. But they do 7 and 8 day long retreats, spiritual, shamanic, sexual initiation. I think is what the first one is called. Yeah. And,
what happens on those retreats?
They are very deep dives into understanding the self, a lot of personal growth, addressing core wound, mother-father wound, understanding our sexuality. There's a lot to say about it. I would say a big thing for me is normalizing our sexuality and really empowering us to know who we are and understand our sovereignty, understand our power as creative beings in the world, and how to live in synergy in community and really cultivate trust through witnessing others and recognizing that we all have similarities and differences, and how do we come together and support to heal and empower each other.
So it sounds like a course on how to just live really intentionally.
Yeah. And there's a lot of embodiment practices. It has spiritual and shamanic in the title to give you kind of a sense of, it comes from Tantra, but also shamanism. And it's really powerful work for people that are ready for that kind of a deep dive.
Gotcha.
It is,
but can look
done
really scary for other people who are like, what the fuck? So I do know a little bit that you guys protect quite a bit of information because of that, because it can be, it's not secretive or anything, right? But I've heard there's some, you don't just like blurt out like, hey, we go do this on this weekend for this retreat. It's, you have to pick and choose who you tell what, because it can be blown out of perspective and judged harshly when you're not open and understanding of that type of world and need. And
yeah, exactly. Well said. Yeah, because it is meant to be experiential, and there is a lot of kind of ceremonial type of work. So you're really kind of creating a sacred space and container to open up and explore in that can be misunderstood out of context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's fantastic. I mean, definitely, one that you have to pick and choose again what you say to people, because if they're not prepared for that information, it can freak them out a little bit. But but there's that's out there.
Yeah, I am curious because we haven't talked a whole lot about self-pleasure and desire and all of that. You tell us just something. We don't have a whole lot of time left, but this is the Salty Sex Cast. Tell us, give us some information. Yeah, give us some information on how to cultivate a better sexual relationship with yourself.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I did touch on it here and there throughout this conversation. And part of it is, for me, I think it is really important. Part of having a healthy relationship with yourself very much includes understanding your own sexuality and having your own sexual relationship with yourself, just as much for somebody who's single as somebody who's in a partnership. And, it's really interesting. I come across, a lot of the women that I work with are in partnership, and oftentimes they come to me because they're like, oh, I'm in this partnership, and, I'm not that interested in sex anymore. And what do I do about that? Or I want to have better sex or more pleasure or more turn on. And then people that are single that are like, I'm just not sexually active, so that part of me just isn't happening. So really, when we are cultivating that relationship with ourselves, it's learning about what does turn you on and what is exciting to you, and how can you cultivate your own arousal and your own desire. We think a lot of arousal and desire being relational, like I see someone I'm attracted to and then I feel horny or something like this. But our erotic energy is it exists in everything. It's creative life force energy. So you can cultivate your own erotic energy, and learning how to do that can really do wonders for having a sexual healthy relationship with yourself if you're single, but also having more arousal and desire if you're in partnership, especially like a long-term partnership. So education, like understanding your erotic nature, we're all turned on by different things. So really getting a sense of like, what are the things that turn me on? I'm thinking of the book Come As You Are, which is a great book for understanding what hits your brakes or your accelerators, because we all have different things that turn us on that come a lot from how we were conditioned and what our sexualization was growing up. So understanding your erotic nature, your arousal and your desire, but also knowing how your body works, understanding your anatomy, understanding how much the brain has to do with all of it. And the more you understand that, and then really embody it and embrace it and cultivate that for yourself, the healthier your sex life is going to be, whether you're single or in partnership. And I strongly encourage everyone to have a self-pleasuring practice or to self-pleasure occasionally, intentionally, even if you're in partnership, or even especially if you're in partnership, because, a lot of times people are like, well, I'd rather, if I'm going to be sexual, I'm going to do it with the person that I'm with. And it's like, yeah, that's great. And like, what about your relationship with yourself? Like, again, like that quality solo time is like, I'm going to do this just for me and really cultivate self-love and self-appreciation and nourish myself in my own pleasure for me. That's independent from anybody else. And that itself is just so empowering. And imagine like filling yourself up with self-love and just like doing something for yourself, and then coming to your partner from a place of like fullness. And yeah, you're already full. I'm spilling over now. Come get some of this extra. Well, that's really, something I've recognized in myself. And that's why, setting my goal this year for more self-pleasure. And it's hard.
it has been hard for me once since we've set this goal. But still, you know, I'm like, okay, you know, that's still an intention I'm putting out there.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on that. But it's
a practice, you know,
it's a
like
practice for sure.
exercising or training or creating a new habit. It's like, you know, sometimes you need to really encourage yourself and then celebrate yourself afterwards. It is a practice, like sitting down to meditate or, you know, starting to exercise more. They just kind of know that it's good for you and figure out a way to get yourself to do it. I'd be curious to talk to you more about it, but not this.
Yeah, of course.
I'm like, what's been hard? Tell me.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question. What are your challenges, Mariah?
Well, you know, one of them, honestly, is, you know, my spouse. We both work from home, so he's always there. So I'm kind of, I feel a little guilty that I'm like, nope, my time. You sit there, you know, like I can close the door. I even was like, do I lock it? So, but I'm like, that's so weird and secretive. And I don't want to be like it's a bad thing. So it made me feel like almost like I was trying to hide something. So I was like, just getting over, you know, spending time and prioritizing my time. You know, I shouldn't say my time, but time with myself. I need to actually even word it differently because there's such a negative taste in my mouth saying it, you know, I need my time kind of thing. It's like a demand instead of like, you know, like an ask, like, you know, this is important to me. So I'm even trying to,
Have you had that conversation with him?
Yeah, we did. And I was like, and also listen to the episode because we talk about it there too. But yeah, you know, it's just one of those things, just kind of becoming okay with asking for time for myself and being okay that I don't always have to share a sexual piece of me always. Because, you know, I think there's that expectation. Both of us have grown up in those types of households where it's like sex is only supposed to be shared with your partner and not even yourself. And so it's still kind of, we're developing that, you know, separately and together. But there's some things. I'm working on it. We're getting there.
What if?
Having that conversation is so important, so your partner understands it and can be supportive, and also knowing that you're also going to value your partner's time with themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe that would help to encourage him to do the same thing.
I know he does the same thing.
Oh, then why do you feel guilty about it?
Because again, that comes to me of, you know, like I shouldn't touch myself if someone's not there. So I have to almost give myself permission. And I mean, like the whole lazy fucking, which we call is our what do we call it? Dual masturbation, you know, where we masturbate next to each other.
That's a lazy fuck.
I call it a lazy fuck because we're still being intimate together, but like somewhat separate anyway. And that was the first big step for me being okay. Like that someone else isn't giving me this, but I'm still around someone else. Anyway, but it was just, you know, slowly growing there. But then I just was like, that's as far as it needs to go. But now I'm like, no, I need more. I want more. I want to have that relationship with myself. But so it's been an interesting, and I'll keep our listeners updated because this is a whole year. I'm dedicating energy and effort and intention to this year.
This does sound like something that would be good for you to talk to a therapist about because it's not the logistical or practical parts that are really getting in your way as much as the emotional component, right?
Yeah, I would agree. There is still the logistical, practical. I'm so fucking busy. And then we both work from home. So then it's like, you know, if I'm passing him, he's like, oh, it's time to hang out. And I'm like, no, really, I just want this time. So, you know, just being very clear of like, this is important to me, but it's not taking away from anything we have.
I just had an idea.
Okay.
I think you should get a hat. It's your masturbation hat.
Okay.
And when you put on your masturbation hat and walk down the hallway to your room,
yes,
he has to leave you alone because it's masturbation time.
I love it. That's going to be so fantastic.
Could we find like a vagina hat, Brady?
I'm on this.
Go
I've
on
already picked
Amazon.
out a hat.
He's already on.
Awesome.
But we're definitely running out of time today. Usha, what would you like to share with our listeners? How can they get a hold of you? I know you were saying that you have a program coming up releasing at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Give it to us all.
Great. So my name is Usha Rose, and that's the name of my website, USHAROSE, usharose.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. My Instagram handle is usha.rose. There's a period in between. And yeah, the program I have coming up is called Women's Pleasure and Power Program. It's an 8-week online course where we dive through 4 different elemental modules, and it's specifically for women to cultivate a more intimate relationship with their sensuality and sexuality, understand their erotic nature. I teach a lot of different erotic embodiment practices to really enhance sensuality. It helps women have better, stronger orgasms, or even have orgasm at all. We also touch a bit on understanding our relating styles and how our eroticism shows up in relationship, and how to work with that to understand yourself and your partners better. And it starts January 27th. The registration will probably be open by the time this podcast airs. I'm opening registration in a few days. So the early bird prices go until January 22nd. And you can find it on my website, or I can give you guys the link to the information about the program. You can, if you want to put it in the show notes or something like that. And then I also have a lot of resources. I have a free self-breast massage practice. I have a downloadable guide to improving your sexual confidence and erotic embodiment. And I also have recordings of guided self-pleasure rituals, which are really amazing. Doing guided self-pleasure practices is a really phenomenal way to enhance your self-pleasure practice, experiment with new techniques.
Wow.
And it really opens women up a lot to having new and different experiences.
I think this is exactly what Mariah needs.
Yeah, that's why I was like, oh, so are you just like making this for me? I love it. Yes. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I can give you all the links for all of those things for your audience to check out. And of course, people can just send me a message on Instagram or reach out directly anytime.
Perfect. We will definitely post all of those links on our Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
So
and have them in the
find
show
you
notes.
easier.
So,
and, and in the show notes as well.
So if you're listening to this podcast, just click on our photo and scroll, and you'll see all the links. I'm assuming most platforms are pretty much the same as all platforms anyway.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to use podcasts, I don't know how you got this far in our podcast, but you're here and we love you for it. So thank you. As always, everyone, if you want to get a hold of us, you can email us at Whoa, I'm throwing words out there. saltysexcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and our Patreon if you really want to become part of our community and support us. We don't earn a penny. Like, we don't take home a penny from what we get from our patrons. It all goes back into the studio and amazing things that we offer everyone. So we just want to take a moment to really appreciate all of our patrons right now. And that's why our sound has improved. And it's just a little crispier, a little nicer, huh, Brady?
Sounds amazing.
Sounds like you're someone in the ear, huh?
Yeah, right in the ear.
Yeah. Love it.
After taking a 2-year break.
That's fantastic. And if you found something helpful on today's episode, please share it with a friend. It's all the fun things.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Usha, for being with us today. We learned so much.
It's fantastic.
You are welcome. It's been a pleasure chatting with both of you, or all three of you. And it's like a conversation I feel like we could have for another hour. So thank you for having me on the show. I really enjoyed chatting with you all.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, I guess that wraps up our episode. We'll be back next week with just the three of us, Mariah, me, and Brady. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, stay sexy
and salty.
Bye.
Yeah. And what's puberty?
Puberty? Well, puberty's a lot of things. Here's the penis.
When you hear about it first, it sounds very strange.
Oh, if it really bothers you, you should see a doctor. Then at puberty, certain glands begin to work, and our bodies begin to change. It enlarges the penis itself.
And there's a center opening between those two, which is called the vagina.
The sex education you wish you had in high school.
Maybe a diagram will help.